Yes, we all desire the best health care that we can get. But are we willing to do that on the backs of our children and grandchildren? That's right. Not unless we're irresponsible. We must choose to only obtain the health care we ourselves are willing to pay for at this time. We must not steal from future generations. For throughout history, parents have willingly sacrificed their own personal desires for their own children. I do not think this present generation has any less standards than those before us. But when a third party gets involved, such as the government, we lose sight of the direct impact our actions have on future generations. We must individually have the right to also choose what our treatments will be, as it's already been previously talked about. We cannot afford to have a government demand what our treatment options are. We all know about the stimulus package and the ludicrousy of voting on it prior to even reading it. We're already seeing in many cases where businesses are saying they didn't need the money, and other businesses are fighting tooth and nail to not be forced to take that same stimulus funds. And other businesses are still continue to fail and require additional funds. Where does that funding stop? Why are we putting the burden of those trying to keep? Why are we trying to put the burden of keeping up our own personal lifestyles on the back of our own children and grandchildren? Do we really think that government can run businesses better than private enterprise? This leads me to the second issue, our Constitution and national sovereignty. When asked what form of government had been bestowed upon us in the Constitution, Benjamin Franklin wisely said, "A republic, ma'am, should you be able to keep it." He knew the dangers of corruption of those we elected. As already explained, a republic is ruled by law. A democracy, on the other hand, operates by direct majority vote of the people. Thomas Jefferson stated that democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the other 49. A republic, however, relies on moral individuals, not being swayed by the immediate, but who rather consider the whole. Thomas Jefferson also warned us, experience has shown that even under the best forms of government, those entrusted with power have, in time, and by slow operations, perverted it into tyranny. We must be careful to constantly evaluate the direction our government is leading us, and be ever vigilant in bringing it back to focus. So what is the standard we should use for that end? According to our founder, Noah Webster, he said, "Our citizens should early understand that the genuine source of correct Republican principles is the Bible, particularly And he continued that saying, particularly the New Testament or the Christian religion. And this statement reflects the sentiment of the majority of our founding fathers, as opposed to what we've been told presently. We should therefore seek diligently to seek the wisdom found therein and ensure it is the basis of decisions made by those in government over us. Noah Webster also said, when you become entitled to exercise, this whole thing is a quote here, when you become entitled to exercise the right of voting for public officers, let it be impressed on your mind that God commands you to choose for rulers just men who will rule in the fear of God. The preservation of a Republican government depends on the faithful discharge of this duty. If the citizens neglect their duty and place unprincipled men in office, the government will soon be corrupted. Laws will be made not for the public good so much as for selfish or local purposes. Corrupt or incompetent men will be appointed to execute the laws. The public revenues will be squandered on unworthy men, and the rights of the citizens will be violated or disregarded. He continued saying, if a Republican government fails to secure public prosperity and happiness, it must be because the citizens have neglected their divine command and elect bad men to make and administer laws. Fellow citizens, I'm afraid we must have neglected that duty. But let us resolve now to correct those errors and so that future generations can live in that prosperity. George Washington also warned against the insidious wiles of foreign influence. The jealousy of a free people ought to constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful woes of the Republican government. He makes it very clear that we should not unnecessarily be tied to foreign laws. We must stress this to our governments, who seek to submit our individual and national rights to those in international organizations. Those organizations do not hold to the same values that we are individually do. It has been proved time and time again. Thirdly, I want to stress the need for energy independence. We have seen the undue influence that our reliance on oil has caused on this nation, and many have died to reduce that influence. It has become another form of financial warfare. It is a shame that when we have the technology and the natural resources within this country to give us that independence, we cannot find within ourselves to allocate the resources to implement it. Again, in the end, it is choices we must make on where to invest our resources, those finite resources that we have and that we've entrusted to our government. Let us choose wisely. In conclusion, what must we do? As citizens, we must seek to understand and preserve the godly heritage we have. And we should pray according to Timothy 2:2, for those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. And we must also let the buck stop here in this generation. Don't pass it on to generations in the greatest pyramid scheme ever contrived, for that's what this national debt is. Register to vote. Demand that policymakers begin to address the issues and hold them accountable and remove them from office if they don't. Rethink our priorities. We must still focus on critical social needs and on programs and policies that work to create a better future. However, we must not assign responsibilities to the government that we are not willing to pay for in taxes. We also must recognize that there are no easy answers. We must be willing to make tough choices. And we must join with other citizens like tonight to make our voices heard. As individuals, we must lead by example. Establish a personal budget and stick to it. Spend, save, and invest wisely. Use credit judiciously and sparingly, and teach our children to do the same. To end, let me quote Samuel Adams. It does not require a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen to set brush fires in people's minds. I pray that this rally is not the end, and that you and I will work tirelessly to save this great nation for future generations.